in a very fundamental sense, similar set of problems, similar set of issues that arise and play themselves out in completely different ways. Open certain windows to see what's happening in Delhi. My sense is that those ideas are common between Delhi and London.
Very located. For instance, he is worried about Hackney and they are doing their bits. And Hackney is not so important for other London. I don't know, maybe I'm totally...
You can look at the Olympic zone or Hackney or Brentford and see the same processes. And like you say, they play out in different ways, but...
Delhi is not one big, it's just chunk.
Yeah,
that's like London.
One of the features about Olympics, and it might be also true of what's happening in Delhi, is actually kind of claim credit for processes that were going to happen. They're actually building on land that should have been kept as more green space, calling it a park and claiming the park as a benefit. So that kind of stuff really needs to be exposed as well.
Yeah. Delhi, you can look at changes happening in a particular area. So we can look at the river bank. That is one area. But lots of places that have gone, done differently. There could be architectural drawings, archival work. Have London as a city, like Delhi as a city maybe for you, is very much accessed through literature. You get a certain history of the city, or you look at Dr. Johnson's London.
There's a little old building over that river tributary entrance, and over time they bridges over rivers. They just end up getting covered over. If it's boats, pleasure boats, is enough for a city of London. Some pleasure, and what's fantastic, summer, they take the boats and they sail all the way up to the Thames Barrier. It's a fantastic way to see the river. Very dramatic going under these bridges, because as I said, the tide is really quite powerful. They're saying, right, that's Dolphin Square, which is M. So Fleming lived there at one time. The Cray brothers, a very lovely London square, and it's one of the only two London squares that actually open up onto the river. The other one is at Wapping. It's got a really lovely garden in the middle of the square. These barges, which is about the only traffic you do see going up and down the river, this is actually waste. Big building, for those that don't know, with the white chimneys there, that's Battersea Power Station. There's another river entrance over there you can see. This waste unit is one of a few that are along the river. That's still working. Using these boats, they have to, when the tide comes in, they'll be floating. The power station was originally built in the 30s, and it was running as a proper power station up until it was closed in the early 80s. This is actually one of the biggest brick buildings ever built in the world. It was designed by the same architect who built the Tate. In fact, this is the building most loved by the architect, and it's much bigger than the Tate. So it's the same architect designed the red telephone box, Sir Giles Gilbert Scott. So the story about this power station is kind of interesting. Grade 2 listed building. It's not had a roof since mid and late 80s. What we're looking at here is a game of corruption and greed being played out with various owners, but basically the story is that the developers want to knock it down. This used to be Battersea Common. It's the only one of the few parks actually on the river in the whole of London. But on the river edge there used to be a place called the Red House, which Dickens used to go to a lot, and one of the features of the Red House was it had these gardens round the back with very high bushes. You know, there was quite a lot of prostitution, and it was a place where people could come, kind of have, you know, illicit affairs, this kind of stuff. And also bear baiting, which is exactly why it was turned into a park, is what the Olympics is going to do to that part of London.
Look around private financial monuments to finance, and you've also got one of the biggest areas of social housing. That's all designed by Lebetkin. Had these international modernist architects coming to Britain and realising these very ambitious, well-designed kind of schemes. And at the time, these are the things that became notorious and as a source of social problem. But when they were being built, they were seen as cutting edge and very much fulfilling that modernist dream that would improve the standard of living of the working class. A big part of the British economy is the city, and basically the reason we exist now. We became very reliant on this kind of plug into the global financial flows, and that is very international. And as we go up the street, really a story of globalization. It's the site of this notorious struggle against the gentrification process. It's Tony's Cafe. Because it was a very popular cafe, there was a lot of support, and people didn't want him to be thrown out. In the end, they sent 50 police and they cleared him out. This is what they sold at schools, doctor surgeries, nurseries, playing fields, youth clubs, the services, the welfare state. The market starts in 2005 and it's very popular, only on Saturdays. Food and the products they're selling are just very expensive and very divisive. And so you've got an economy that's completely decadent, and it's defining the world around totally irrational needs. Here you're taking this often quite nice, represents one of the gains of mid-20th century capitalism, and you're fucking it up. You're taking green space and turning it into a really bad building. Just these big green bands called Development Opportunity. There's a really good website called Games Monitor. This is the edge of Victoria Park, and we're going to a little bit down here. Imagine you've got these two bits of river, and it's called the River Lee. In that zone between area which isn't quite central London and it isn't quite Essex. All of this area was an area of industry, the 19th century into the late 20th century towards the 80s. You've got this very big area and a lot of venues crammed into it. The main stadium, handball arena, fencing venue, BMX venue, velodrome, hockey centre, international broadcast centre for all the media. This is the energy station and the they call it aquadrome or something, that Zaha Hadid designed. So we're going to start off near Hackney Wick. This was an allotment set up in the early 20th century by this philanthropic aristocrat called Villiers, who was a friend of Churchill's. He saw what happened in the First World War and saw how the working class suffered, and he thought, I will give some money to making life better for the EastEnders, and that's gone. Imagine this whole area is just a huge building site. Basically the rest of our tour, apart from the Olympic Stadium, is stuff that isn't there.